So for people that are new, I highly recommend that you watch last week's stream whenever we're done with this one, because I'm going to kind of move on based off of what we talked about last time. And I'll also be answering questions. I had some questions that were asked to me throughout the week, so I'm going to be covering those in depth a little bit too. And basically going over what we think EU is going to do this upcoming week, right? Last week we had a very, very accurate prediction live on Sunday night, on last Sunday night's call. So if you guys want to see us break down EU in depth and basically predict it to a T, then I highly recommend you guys go and watch that, right? But same thing as always, while we're going through all this, if you guys have questions, if you guys have concerns or any sort of confusion or anything, feel free to ask it in the chat. You can't like direct message me, I don't think, on this, and I don't think I could see it if you did. So just send it in the chat, and I'm sure someone else has the question if you have it as well, right? So we're gonna kind of do a couple things. First, I want to. So I'm gonna answer the questions that I had while we're going over kind of like a kind of rerun of what happened last week and what we can kind of morph into for this week, right? So hope you guys are excited, and ready to learn, right? Make sure you guys are taking notes and doing all that good stuff. So to start off the week, right, we're gonna pull up where we get our news from. And while this is loading, if you guys get any value from this call, if you guys learn anything whatsoever, right, feel free to shout me out on social media at Ollie Cashflow, or the stuff should be popping up somewhere around here throughout the call, right? But that would be deeply appreciated, right? So we'll go back to, what day was this? The 21st was... That was Thursday. So Wednesday and Thursday last week is what we're going to look at, right? So Wednesday 1st, okay? So Wednesday 1st, we had news come out on USD for FOMC, right? So this is where the Fed came together and they were determining interest rates for the news, right? Not for the news, for the economy, right? Are they going to be raising interest rates? Are they going to be lowering interest rates? That kind of stuff. And whether or not the Fed determines if they're going to raise or lower or maintain interest rates has an insane amount of impact on what happens with the dollar specifically, right? And since we're trading Forex, right, which is currencies against each other, and we're trading the dollar specifically against the euro, that has a lot of impact to what we're doing and to what our overall analysis is going to be, right? So what ended up happening is that the Fed announced that they were not going to be raising interest rates, right? They were not raising, or they were not going to change interest rates. I'm sorry, they were not changing interest rates. They weren't lowering them or raising them, right? And what happened is sometime in November, December of 2023, the Fed announced that they were going to be cutting interest rates 4 times throughout the year 2024, right? And most people were expecting it to happen in the first quarter of this year, which would have been the announcement in March, right? Which would have been here, right? But since that, because of the fact that the interest rates were not cut, right, that negatively impacted the dollar a lot, right? So now what we talked about on Sunday night last week, right, was the DXY, right? So if we were to go back to... Let's go back to Sunday. Oh, that's this week. Okay. Monday, Tuesday. Okay, Sunday. We were right here last week. Okay. Now, we discussed a couple of things regarding the overall analysis, which I'm not going to cover too much in depth. I know that some people had questions about drawing fibs and the correct way to do it, so we'll cover that in a minute. But aside from that, we're just going to go overall the analysis, right? So we had our fib drawn, right? We had our fib drawn. For those of you guys that don't know, I'm super big on that when I tie it in with overall, price action in regards to, supply and demand, psychological levels, whole number theory, that kind of stuff. And it sounds pretty simple when you know it, right? So, but a lot of people overlook it, right? And how accurate it can really be, right? Some people think that you need, and I talked about this earlier this week, some people think that you need to have a bunch of overcomplicated things to have an accurate analysis when it comes to your trading, and that's just because that's the stigma around trading, right? I was featured on a podcast like a year ago, and we talked about that for like 30 minutes, just about how the stigma of trading is that it's very complicated and that it's very hard to learn, right? And that's because either, you know, the man, right, or us, people that make things overcomplicated, right? So when it comes down to it, it was a very simple analysis, right? So we just drew our fib structure, right? And we came down to our gold zone, right? And we were currently floating around this area, which is target 1 for DXY, right? And now what we assumed is because of the news, right? And also because of the fact that USD was pumping a lot, right? We had predicted that, or assumed, right, that it was going to come a little bit higher to this 104 psychological area, right? 104 to 250. Okay, now what ended up happening, right, as we can go on, like, remember what I said though, right, is that the news was negative for the dollar, right? But now that news did not come out until Wednesday, right? So because we understood that news was not coming out until Wednesday on that previous Sunday, we were able to assume, okay, if, the Fed does not really have any intention of cutting interest rates, we can assume that price is probably going to drop, right? But that's probably not going to happen until that news release is announced, right? So what that means is that price is going to do one of two things. It's either going to consolidate, okay, around where it's currently at Sunday open, or, right, like we said, because in the previous call, that price moves to price and price moves to supply or demand areas, right? The next immediate supply area that is significant enough for the DXY to be respected, right, was, like we said, the 104 area. Okay, and we draw a little sloppy line here, but let's see what happens, right? I guess we'll do this on the 15th still. So, as you can see, this is now Monday, right? Monday, it pushed up a little bit, right? Tuesday came up a little bit higher, right? And now, currently, right here, it's Tuesday, 9 a.m., right? Now, and you guys can go look on Sunday. We said it was going to happen, right? So, it came up to fulfill this price area, right? So, now that USD is super overbought, right? USD is at a super high point, right? We can start predicting, right? Okay, and it's common knowledge, right? If it's too high, what needs to happen? It needs to come down, right? So what ended up happening, right? I'm pretty sure it came up a little. I'm pretty sure it came up way higher than this. Yeah, it came up higher. Right? Now we're on Wednesday. News is about to come out. Right? So, we'll stop it right there. Okay, so we were able to identify two things too. We also had this trend line I had this trend line that I had drawn, right? So whenever this trend line was broken, okay, plus confirmation of the whole number zone rejection, plus the confirmation that it was overbought, plus all of the other billion confirmations that we had because we had already overanalyzed it the previous week, right? We were able to get in on buys, right? We were able to get in on buys for this pair, buys, and then we were able to catch the reversal down, right? So we were already in on buys that we called out, right, on that call, on Sunday night's call, right? And then as you can see, it's the exact same thing, just a little bit opposite, right? Where if the DXY is going up, right, that Euro US is going down, right? When the DXY starts dropping, right, Euro US starts going up, right, because the euro is being traded against the dollar, right? So what ended up happening is that price moved exactly through, right? Aside from the fact that the take profit levels got hit, right? That's, that's cool, whatever, right? But let's look at where price actually went to on this pair specifically, right? So where to identify, we just look over to the right side of the screen here. Yeah, let's make myself a little bit more content worthy right here, right? Let's put myself right here, and we're gonna be looking at this side of the screen, right? So we're looking at this side of the screen, okay? And we'll just put a line, right, at the highest point, okay, 9430, okay. So, using the strategy that we already use, know, and love, right? Let's not overcomplicate anything, right? This could be signified as a billion different things and a billion different reasons why you could take the trade, right? But based off of the strategies that we already know, right? The simplest way that you can think about this, okay? What is the closest major number that is close to this number right here, right? If we were to just draw a line, right? And we'll look at the, and we'll put it, oops. Right, and we put it right where it needs to be, right? This number, 9,500, okay, is only, right, 7 pips away from where the market rejected and tanked, right? So meaning that it's only 7 pips away. A big thing that people do, right? A big thing that newbie traders do, or even some experienced traders do as well, right? It took me a while to kind of really start taking this into full consideration and applying it on a daily basis, right? A mistake that a lot of people make is treating their order levels, right, or treating their market price levels, whatever, however you want to identify them, whether they're order blocks, supply and demand, liquidity, support and resistance, whatever, right, is that you define it by an exact price, right? And what I mean by that is like how we have this exact line here, that if we were to wait for the market to come to this exact price, we would have missed the entry, right? But now a thing too that a lot of people that trade with a little bit of experience, what they do is they have an ego, right? And what I mean by that is that you might know, right, already that it's basic rules, right, that price is not an exact line, that it's a zone. That's what I was trying to get at too, is that what you should do instead of treating it as a line and as an exact price is treating your order areas or rejection areas as a zone, right? Give or take the magical number, right? It's 5 to 8 pips, right? So if I'm assuming that the price is going to come up to 9,500, I'm going to estimate that price might push up 5 to 8 pips, or price might reject 5 to 8 pips below. Right, and what I was saying back in regards to before to experienced people is that we all might know this already, right? And I'm saying this from experience. I already knew that as basic information, right? I didn't know that at first, but when I got a little bit of experience, I understood, okay, price, obviously, it's not going to always go to this exact number, but it's going to, give or take a few pips, right? But now, me being a know-it-all, right, I knew that, right, but I wasn't actually acting on that, right? And I had a psychological block that would not really allow me to respect that, right? Because if price came right up to here, I would want to think, okay, I can maybe get a better entry if I just waited 3 to 5 more pips, right? And then when it starts dropping, you're going to want to panic enter, right? And when you panic enter, you might risk more than you're supposed to, or now your stop loss is way bigger than it's supposed to, or your stop loss is put in the wrong place, or a bunch of other stuff that is just bad, right? Or option 2, right, is you get in at the exact same at the exact price that you're expecting to get in at, and then price keeps pushing up, right? And when price keeps pushing up, you panic close now because you're thinking, oh damn, fuck, I got in at the wrong place, I need to close the trade, right? So that was a psychological block that I had for months, right, to be honest, whenever this was like maybe like during like year 2 or 3, and it's not like a bad thing that happens because you know the information, but again, it's that you're not applying the information, right? It's the same concept that a lot of other traders struggle with as well when it comes to improving your trading, right? When it comes to improving your trading, you know what you got to be doing, right? You know you got to be journaling, you know you got to be back testing, right? But back testing with intention. But sometimes you don't do it, right? Shout out to the people that do it, but a lot of times most people don't do it, right? I have a lot of students that I'll talk to where they'll ask me questions, right? And then here's the thing that's annoying about me, right? And some people get mad at me about it, right? Is the way that I like to teach, right? Is I don't just like telling you the answer, right? I'm going to ask you a question back, right? Because that means, and that question is going to determine how much you've actually been doing, because I know what you need to be doing. That's the thing, because once you learn how to trade, you know what you got to do, right? And in order to get to the point where all you have to do is journal or back test, I also know what things need to be done previously in order for you to get to that point where that's all you got to do, right? So if somebody asks me something, let's say if you use this for example about drawing up your zones, right? If they're saying, hey, I'm struggling when it comes to my entries, I feel like I feel like I'm not getting the entries right, or I feel like I'm not timing the entries right, or I feel like I'm struggling when it comes to marking up my support or my resistance levels, and it's always this, can you send me what you do? Or can we get on a call and you just show me how to do it? And I love getting on calls with the students, right? I have no problem with that. But then my thing is, though, is I'll ask, right? Show me the examples of the past trades you've taken the last week and send it to me. Right? And then now either two things happen. Majority of the time, right? I'm gonna keep it real with you guys, right? Because these are people that are non-students on this call, and these are people that are students, right? So I'm saying this to people that are students, right? That need help, okay? That way you do this. And people that are not currently students yet, that way if you join my group or you go join another person's group, that you don't make your journey more difficult to begin with, right? So now option one of what happens is they say, oh, I haven't been trading, I haven't been journaling, I've just been studying, right? And if I say I've just been studying, I'll say, show me your notes, right? And 9 times out of 10, right, the notes are just, there'll be 4 chapters on one piece of paper, right? You probably aren't going to remember that much, right? It's not a surprise that you don't know how to mark your stuff up, right? Or if the trading journal is empty, yeah, I haven't been trading, I don't have a journal, or I've been trading, I don't have the journal for you. You know what I mean? You're not probably trading. You're probably not trading. You know what I mean? You're probably not trading, right? Or, and then the last option, right, and this is the one that's the kind of a little bit more difficult to work with, right? It's where you're trading and you're journaling, but each trade is a different strategy, right? Or each week is a different strategy, or each week is like a different time frame, or like a different entry point, or a different type of or a different style of your trading, right? And now the whole thing of what I'm trying to boil down to is that you just need to have consistency with everything, right? So now the way that you're able to, and this is where it all started, is where it comes to support, resistance, and zones, right? The whole way you get good at identifying zones, you gotta practice, right? You gotta practice. And a little just easy rule of thumb for those of you guys that are paying attention and not, just watching blindly, right? 5 to 8 pips, right? Just 5 to 8 pips, right? So now if you get in and the market happens to push up on you, you just have to take that into consideration. Think about everyone that's getting stop hunted. Think about all the liquidity orders that are up there, and just think about all the fake outs that 9 times out of 10 happen on a break of structure. Right? It's bound to happen. But now, instead of you missing, this goes back into last week, right? Where it ties into people that don't trade because you're overthinking. You don't have a trading log because you're overstimulating yourself. You're overanalyzing the market, and you're overthinking everything, so you don't take any trades. Right? So instead, just simplify it, and you'll just see. Because if you're overcomplicating the process of you entering something, right? Of you making an actual entry point, right? If you're overcomplicating that, right? You're gonna miss out on a lot of entry points. Okay? Because if we were to wait, because I called this trade out in the Discord too, right? And I did it live on Sunday night, right? If I would have said, no, we need to wait for price exactly, right, to reach this liquidity zone, or to reach, because it is a previous liquidity zone, it's not wrong, right? Or to reach this exact price. It's not that the information is wrong, it's that price is going to do what price does, not what you think it's going to do. You know what I'm saying? So when you understand that, right, you can have your best estimated guess. Okay, and this also ties into something I talked about during the week as well, where it comes to, that's all you're doing when you're trading, right? So when it comes down to you overcomplicating stuff, you're just making your life harder. You're just making your life harder. Because the market's, it's gonna go up, it's gonna go down, right? And that's the thing too. And I had a friend of mine come over this week, And for those of you guys that are unaware, okay, you have, right, at the bare, right, excuse me. What was I gonna say? Um, oh yeah, okay. But at the bare minimum, for people that are like complete noobs, right? You have no idea what you're doing when it comes to trading. You don't even know how you got on this call. You don't even know why you're looking at a chart right now, right? For those of you guys that are doing that, you have a 66% chance at any given moment of you having a positive outcome when it comes to trading, right? A 66% chance of a positive outcome. Now, what is a positive outcome, right? A positive outcome is you making money or not losing any money, right? Because a cool thing with trading is that you have something called break even, where you don't make money, you don't lose money, right? So now that's also defined as a win. So you have a 66% chance of winning compared to a 33% chance of losing. And that's just you pressing buy or sell blindly. You don't even know what you don't even know what you're doing. You just press it, right? Now, by you spending a little bit of time just learning, right? And for the people that are actually learning and you have an understanding of what you're doing already, we're going to get into the analysis in a second, guys. Just, bear with me, right? This is going to be useful to you too one day, right? But for those of you guys that struggle when it comes to entering the trade or holding your trade or not trusting your trade or not knowing how to trade in general and you're scared to learn how to trade, 66% chance, okay? And by you learning what to do, by you just learning basic market structure, by you learning basic price action, okay, you're increasing that percentage, dude, to like 75, 85, 90% chance of you winning, right? And I know that says like, oh, Ollie, you're saying like, you're going to win 90% of your trades. No, but, right, but you'll win a lot of your trades. You'll win, more than 7 out of 10 of your trades if you just trust the analysis that you do, but you have to know how to analyze in a simple and easy to understand way. Right? That has flexibility in the market. Because again, now that we're going to go into tonight's analysis for EU moving forward for this week, right? A thing about it, and this again bothers some people, I'm very lax when it comes to my analysis, right? Now, I'm not ever like open-ended where it's like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen, or I don't have an idea, oh, whatever, we're just going to find out. But I don't know what's going to happen. Neither do you. You know what I mean? I could have the best technical analysis in the world, and for all we know, fucking next week, Biden's gonna say we're in a recession, and if he says that, dollar's going, to shit, and what am I gonna do? I have no control over that. So you just have to do your best analysis, right? And now again, based off of my trading plan, right? For those of you guys that don't know, I don't like trading on Sundays, right? We're going to analyze the market right now. That does not mean I'm going to get in right now, right? And now here's the thing too. I might not trade every single day. If the market is not giving me an appealing setup with 4 to 5 plus confirmations, then I'm not going to take the trade, right? There's no point in me stressing, because if I'm stressing, means we're not enjoying the process of trading. And if you're not enjoying the process of trading, it means that you don't know what you're doing. It's fun when you learn how to make money, right? What's stressful and annoying and scary and what makes people quit trading, right, is when you're overstimulating yourself and you're rushing the process and you feel like you need to trade. You feel like you have to be going in. You feel like you need to have a trade every single day. And because of the fact, if you limit your mind, I talked about this last week too. Now, last thing, if you limit your mind to think the market needs to be XYZ, upside down triangle formation, perfect to a T, before you can enter, you're going to miss, 7 out of 10 trades. In the 3 trades you take, you're going to lose 2 of them. You know what I'm saying? Because so you got to just take that into consideration. A big thing that people mess up in the beginning to like intermediate journey of their trading career, okay, is that don't overcomplicate it and don't put your mind into a box, right? Here's another quote, right? And this is the last thing, right? This is going to be a bar though, okay? So those of you guys that are taking notes, this is bar, okay? And I also said this the other day, right? If you spend, no, okay, messed up, forget it, right? So the quote is this: everybody spends all of their time trying to think outside of the box for the perfect way to do it, that the inside of the box is left completely empty and up for grabs, right? So that's how I like to think about myself when it comes to my analysis, when it comes to my trading style, whatever. There's nothing new that I'm inventing. There's nothing new that anyone on social media has invented, right? So instead of me trying to overcomplicate and think of the best perfect golden strategy to teach you guys so I can make $1 million off of you, I'm just going to look inside the box, ladies and gentlemen. The basics are there. The basics have been there for decades, right? Before I was born, before 90% of the people watching this call were born, okay? And it's just social media that tells you it does not work. And guess who's on social media, ladies and gentlemen? Take a guess. Who's on social media? The broke, busted, and disgusted, ladies and gentlemen, okay? And you don't want to be like those people. I know you don't, right? So, or else you wouldn't be on here, right? So, point of that part is don't listen to social media. Don't overcomplicate your life. Keep it simple. And now, let's go into the analysis, right, for the week, right? So, okay, EU, right? Pretty simple to sum it up. I am bullish, ladies and gentlemen. I am bullish on EU, right? Because of the fact that we have made some very, very, very bearish lows, right? We have made some very bearish lows, guys. So if we're going to take a big look at everything, okay, EU had a massive, massive drop off, right, last week, right? Right before the week closed, it literally tanked. Let's count how many pips from top to bottom. Right, 141 pips, guys. 141 pips. I only caught more or less. I'm not even going to lie to you guys and say I caught the 77. I probably closed out maybe around here. Let's see how many pips that was. Probably caught around like 50, 55, right? So we'll be honest, right? Honesty is the policy, right? So we'll close out around there, okay? But, so we dropped. Insane, though. We had an insane drop. So, something I want you guys to take note of, okay, is this. Let me pull this up. Let me get a little handy dandy arrow here for you guys. You know, I've been using TradingView for years, and I always forget where shit is sometimes. Damn, what the fuck? Arrow. Text. Okay. I'll do this one. Okay. So, let's look here, right? What is the price? Like we identified, 9,500, right? 9,500 is that whole number zone. And now look at where price rejected at first, right? Kind of, I wouldn't really count that. I'm not gonna be bougie. I'm not gonna say I'm right on that one, right? So we'll let's look at the next one, right? Same thing, 8,500, bounce off of 8,500 right here, pretty much, right? Broke through that liquidity there, and now where did we settle at our bottom, ladies and gentlemen? Right? We settled at 1.08 thousand, right? So it moved from whole number zone to new fresh whole number zone, right? And since this was a big whole number zone, that is also a big psychological area, right? Since it's a big psychological area, that means that since it happened on a Friday, right, that probably means that a lot of institutions and a lot of banks and a lot of retail traders did what? What do you think people did on Friday before market closed? They close their trades, right? Or they have trades ready to close on Monday or Sunday, right? Meaning that there's liquidity that has now been established, right? Which means that bulls can now come into the market and take over, right? So if we were to go on a higher time frame, right? Let's look at the last time that price was at this point. What happened the last time price was here, right? a very, very, very strong bullish reaction. Right now, I'm not saying that we're probably going to shoot back up all the way up to here where we were, but I think that we could probably catch a good 30 to 40 pips, and we could probably catch a good 30 to 50 pips perhaps, so taking that information into consideration, right? Let's just keep looking, okay? So we have that. Let me put myself in the corner. Right? Let's hide our drawings now. Okay. RSI. I have my RSI on a 14 right now because we've been in a trend. Right? So as you guys can see, we're getting a little bit of divergence happening right here, right? Another positive bullish sign, right? RSI is saying we're going up, right? The market has been saying we are going down, right? That is a positive bullish sign, right? That is another confirmation that we could buy, okay? Also, stochastic, we got the crossover. I'm not really I use the stochastic, right? But I mostly just use it as an additional confirmation. I'm not gonna yeah, oh fuck, I'm lagging bad. Let me close out news. I'll pull up the news again in a minute. I hate where I live, dude. The Wi-Fi sucks. So, as long as you guys can hear me, that's what matters. If you start to hear my voice, lag out too, just let me know in the chat. And yeah. And I'll turn my camera off or whatever. But we're still good for now, okay? So yeah, RSI, stochastic, I don't really use this one as much. This one's just in conjunction with the RSI. I just use them together. Now let's see if we have established a strong low. It says weak low, right? That's no good. Right, that's been saying that though, so that's whatever. We're not gonna pay attention to that too much. Let's hide the drawings. We're in a supply, I guess. So this one's saying bearish still. So that'll give us a keen eye to be aware. You know what I'm saying? Be aware of it. This one's saying we hit a demand zone. That's already pretty obvious. So this is a good sign, right? So even though we are still getting, we're still in a downtrend overall, price needs to come back up to fulfill the EMA line. So that is probably, yeah, just like I said, around 30 to 40 pips, right? Until once price hits this EMA line, then we'll probably have a continuation. No, someone was probably calling me. For people that don't know, I use my iPhone for the camera, so that you know what I mean. So if someone calls me, and that turns it off. But so the EMA, that's a good confirmation. This is just 200 EMA, a 200 EMA. Sorry. Let's look at some candles. We got a strong hammer and doji. Honestly, that looks like a textbook. Damn. If you guys see me quote this, right, that'd be pretty cool, right? This looks like a textbook Morningstar. I'm pretty sure, right? I'm pretty sure, right? Let's pull up our handy dandy Discord chat. That looks like a pretty standard doji Morningstar. I can't lie. Let's go to the Discord and confirm. Let's go bonus info. Candlestick pattern. Not that one. Maybe this one. Dragonfly doji. Bullish, whatever. Morningstar. Probably not then. I guess I'm wrong. See, I'm not right about everything either, guys. You can't be. What is this one? Definitely not. Bearish, bullish. Bearish, no. I guess it's just saying it's a hammer. I don't know. I don't know, guys. I think that looks like a certain type of candlestick pattern to me. But I guess not. I can't say that this is wrong. I guess a shooting star. Dragonfly doji, no. Huh. Guess everyone's wrong one of these days, right? You know what I mean? Bears. Nah, not three white soldiers. It actually could be. I mean, either way, this right here. These three candles right here. These three candles look like a good bullish sign, right? Reason being, okay, right? Bearish drop off, doji candle rejection, right? Strong wick rejection off of the 8,000 zone that I mentioned earlier, followed by a bullish engulfing candle, right? This candle engulfs this candle plus this candle, making it a bullish engulfing candle, ladies and gentlemen, right? Now, also, I honestly think this is a good buy. If we were to enter this for the week, right? Let's see what DXY is doing. Right? It really depends on what this does. So, if this is to recover, which it kind of did strongly. So, if this is to recover, so if this breaks off of here, right? Option one, boom, make a nice little double top possibly, come back down to here. If we come back down to here, then that is a good sign to buy on Euro, right? So that's kind of what I'll assume is going to happen, right? Just based off of raw, just raw TA here, right? No biasness going on. If it breaks, then EU is going to continue going down. But I honestly think this could be a decent long opportunity. I would get in on a strong break. I guess I have to say this zone then. That's a lot of pips. I would say smart decision, right? Smart decision for me to be smart guy for you guys. I'd say that's a fair target. Right, for those of you guys that want to be lazy traders and just do what I'm telling you. No, there's some of you on here. I know there's some of you guys on here. Right, that would be the setup. Right, just raw, base it off of that. Depends on, let's go see if there's news. Yeah, and if you guys are not a student with us, go join as a student, right? And if you are a student with us too, actually, so I'm doing private mentorship right now also. I have 6 more available slots for that. So I currently have 4 people that I'm currently personally mentoring. And I have 6 more available. I figured I can cap myself out at 10. So if you are a current student and you do want personal mentorship, let me know. And if you are somebody also that is wanting to join Cashflow, I'm running a special on personal mentorship, right? Or it's $250 for you to join yourself, right? You guys make the decision, right? That's my little advertisement. But if you guys want personal mentorship, let me know. I'm doing it right now. So there's news on Tuesday. Forecast is actual greater than forecast. It's good for currency. Last month it wasn't. So just based off of last month, how many pips is this? I think that's a decent entry. I wouldn't be greedy on that. I would do this. Right, we would get in, take profit 1, 15 pips right here, or 12 pips, probably give or take. Right in between here, this retracement 1 area, and then this right here, like these lows. I would set take profit 1 around there, take profit 2 a little bit higher, and then at take profit 2, I'd move the stop loss to break even, let the rest run, and then I wouldn't even close here unless it pulled back. I would just let myself get stopped out at stop 2, and just for sure capture the 25 pips and then just let it run, because it could, depending on the news on Tuesday, it could push up back up to this previous zone. It really does just depend. Um, I don't even think I would draw a fib here. Because this would be this is what I would do with the fib. You see, as it came down this high, this impulsive move down here, came up to the gold zone. That's another bullish sign, honestly, is it fulfilled this gold zone, came straight down and take profit 1, take profit 2, take profit 3, came down and take profit 4 on the fib, which means that a new structure is forming. Yeah, so even if we drew this fib from this high to this low, that would still give us the opportunity to catch that bullish break. We can catch it up to here. And then same thing, you know, take profit 1 would be in this first retracement zone. Take profits 2, 3, and so on and so forth would be past here up into the gold zone. And then once gold zone area was reached, this also kinda lines back up with this demand zone that we have here, this orange rectangle that we have. I mean, not demand, supply area. And then once market came up to here, right? So let's say, and then I will put my stop right below here. So this would be a decent 4-to-1 RR. I would make the stop loss 20 pips. Full take profit would be the 80, I guess, just to be ideal, right? But if you don't feel comfortable with that, you could do a 15 pip, and then, you know, just target down here. As long as you have a 3-to-1, that's what matters the most. As long as you have a 3-to-1, you're in good hands, you're good. So that's what you got to pay attention to. And then once we come up to there, and we fulfill that, depending on the news and depending on everything else, we could be looking for short opportunities to ride the wave back down, guys. So that's pretty much the analysis I got for you. Any questions, concerns, confusions? Sorry about the camera, but questions, concerns, confusions about the analysis so far? I'm going to give you guys a second for that. No questions, concerns, confusions. Everyone understands? I'm going to assume yes. Or I'm just going to assume yes. But if you're someone and you have a specific question and you did not get it answered and you're confused on it, I'm giving you a chance to ask the question. Right, so if you don't ask the question, we're going to go ahead and there's really not much else for me to talk about right now. We do have a lot of big things that we're coming out with soon. So make sure that you guys are staying up to date in the Discord. I'm going to be sending out my current updates throughout the week, you know, as the market goes on. And other announcements as well, too. One big thing that I'm wanting to go to is there is a Dubai trip at the end of this year. So depending on how everything goes with my business, depending how everything continues to go with trading for myself and with the other students, right? I've done the math. Depending, we would be splitting a place to stay. It could be maybe around $800 to $1,000 to go to Dubai for 4 to 5 days and then go to a really cool Forex event, right? But aside from that, what else can I announce? Yeah, if you guys are not in Cashflow yet, please, you know, go check us out. Or if you guys are in Cashflow and you guys got some value from this call, please go leave us a positive review on Google, and also please give us some positive recommendations to friends or family. You know, that way we can impact more lives and, you know, reach a bigger audience. These calls are completely free, so, you know, share us, you know, shout us out on social media. But then if you guys have any questions, you know, feel free to ask me in the Discord, guys, or reach out to me. And if you guys are wanting personal mentorship, please reach out to me and I will hook you up with a good deal, guys. But with that, stay blessed, stay abundant, stay focused, have a positive trading week, have a good trading week. If you need help, you guys know where to find me. And any other announcements? Nah, just go blow me up on social media, shout me out, and show me some love, guys. I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to make some big moves this year, and, you know, that way we can get 900 viewers on this call. You know, I need some help doing that. Can't do that by myself, guys. But I appreciate you all. I love you all. God bless you all. And I will see you all next week on Sunday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern with an updated view of the market. See how right I was. And aside from that, I will see you all at the top because the bottom is way too crowded, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.